Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. If you want to interact with me and the other co-hosts, go to patreon.com. Even if you're not a patron, that's where we're going to be mainly interacting with everyone and having conversations with each other about things. I don't know, it just seems like the best place for those kind of conversations. You know, the rest of the social media world can be difficult sometimes. And I feel like Patreon can be a nice place for people to ask questions or to have some back and forth. Only if you want to. Let's watch.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
I invited you here because you asking me to take down the Instagram, right? I really want the marriage to work. For peace to reign. I'll delete the Instagram, okay? To be honest, deleting my Instagram now, I really feel bad. I really feel discouraged.
All right, I am too. He's saying, and who knows if this is fakery or not, but I don't know, it looks real to me, who knows. But he's saying that he is actually going to delete his Instagram now. And, I've been saying from the beginning that if he does that, it sets a precedent that her abuse of him works. He's given in on a number of fronts up until this point, I think as a result of her abusing him. And this is seemingly another example of that. It's hard to know what's really happening, but it certainly looks that way from what they're showing us on the TV. And she is probably going to continue, unless she gets a lot of help or somehow turns this around, she's probably going to continue to further isolate him. Who knows what's really happening here? But if I heard a story like this from a client or even from a friend, I would highly suspect that the Angela individual, the person in that role, is unknowingly on a campaign to isolate the victim in various ways. And once he is isolated this way, then there'll just be some other way to isolate him further in the future. Another way of looking at it is he still has power, he still has some power, he still has some contact with the outside world, and those will also feel threatening to her, I think, and then she will transfer that worry, that irrational worry, and that's due to her traumas, I think, into hostility and control, and attack him, and he'll say, well, I don't know, I've given up so much already, I might as well give up this as well. So, yeah, it's pretty discouraging because there's nothing in the facts that says that he can't have an Instagram. It's not like he's asking to be able to cheat on her or something like that, right? He just wants to have an Instagram. He also wants to have power. He wants to have access to money so that the two of them can contribute to the family business, if you will. And yeah, and so I'm guessing that she's going to relent because that's her pattern. She's probably also going to question whether he's being real or not. But I think if she believes him, she'll be like, okay, well, we're good because that's all I was asking for. Was it that hard? I'm guessing we're going to see that. I don't know. Let's see.
Last night I said I want to take a stand for myself, but I got a change of mind. I just want to save my marriage because I really love her. I mean, we've been through thick and thin. And she said she's going to leave Nigeria. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know, but you will hear victims say similar things. They'll say like, yeah, I mean, I love our marriage. We've been through so much together. I've invested so much in this relationship already. Okay, fine. I'll give up my Instagram. It's, when I compare the two things, it doesn't really make sense. It's like, why am I holding on to my Instagram when I stand to lose so much? I think she's being unreasonable, but it's not that big of a deal. In isolation, sure, but when you see a pattern of that, and you add up all the things that you give up as a victim, the amount of downsides and the amount of things you have to give up, the amount of things you have to deal with is far greater than any kind of benefit one would get from the relationship.
Now you're happy now, right?
You should have never put it up. I love you. Always have loved you.
And the abusive pattern cycle is often such that as you give up these things and say, okay, fine, you were right. You didn't hit me the other night. Or you're right. I should never talk to my family about our marriage again. Or You were right. I should never have spent that evening with my friends. You were right. I never should have said that thing that bothered you. And you were totally justified in abusing me for the past week. Okay, you're right. You're right. And then the abusive person will feel relieved with that and feel safe and in control. And then they will follow that up with, I love you. If it's a psychopathic, sadistic, Machiavellian move, then the person thinks, okay, now that I have this, I'm going to reward them. But more often than not, it's not a Machiavellian thing. It's just the abusive person actually feels relief. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. I love you so much. Thank you for, or there'll be some gesture of care or love or something. And so we seem to be seeing that right now.
But you've run me through the ringer. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell the truth. I know when you're lying. Do you understand that? Matter of fact, let me see your phone, Michael. I want to see who you've been talking to.
Wow. So it's not enough. It's starting right back into it. So I thought she would be more rewarding in this moment, but the control, the invasiveness is continuing. So now, maybe he is cheating, and maybe she'll find something, and maybe he is a jerk face. But I want to be clear, even if he's cheating up and down, it does not justify abusive behavior at all.
I want to see, let me see, don't want you to do nothing, just get the phone.
Michael taking down his Instagram. This is what I wanted the whole time. And I'm glad that he took it down. But am I still skeptical? Of course I am, because he still has a problem with lying.
Is there anything, you done erase it?
No, I didn't erase it. Angie, come on now. Don't like it.
I'm your wife, I got that right. What women do you have on this phone?
My sister.
So there's that statement again. I'm your wife. I have that right. She's frequently talking about these rights. I don't know if there's also some political Twitter angle to this as well. Who knows? But at the very least, that's been her contention. And you will hear that from abusive people. They will have a very strange, especially if it's just the two of you, you're the victim and the abusive person, it's just the two of you having a conversation. The abusive person will have a very weird way of organizing morals and ethics and rules and rights. We heard this in the Amaranth yelling spree. We don't know exactly what was happening there, but it sounded as if the husband was being abusive and had been abusive throughout their relationship. Who knows what's really happening, but the way he was communicating, it sounded as though he was saying, look, I have the right to to kill your dogs or something like that. And if it's just the two of you, you just feel like, really? And that's how the gaslighting will happen. You will be at first thinking, well, that doesn't sound right to me. But the abusive person will hammer and hammer and hammer, and they seem so sure of themselves. And you as the victim, you'll have, and Amaranth had that reaction. She's like, huh? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then more abuse, hammer, and more trouble. And then eventually you just say, you know what? And this is what brainwashing techniques like with interrogation, this is exactly how it works, is you want to break down the person's mechanism that evaluates whether or not something is rational or not. There's actually a pretty effective scene in Star Trek The Next Generation, if I remember right. I mean, it's been 25 years, I think, since I've seen this episode, but Jean-Luc Picard is a prisoner, and they keep emotionally torturing him such that he has to agree that like 1 + 1 = 3 or something like that. And at first he's like, no, that's not true. And they just keep hammering him, and they're just like, look, everything will be better. Interrogation of suspects for the police, they will do this as well. This is how a lot of innocent people will falsely confess to a crime, is you just get beaten down, and eventually you're just like, oh, yeah, things would just be so much easier if I just gave up on the truth. If I just gave up on assuming that I know anything. If I just become a leaf in the wind and get pushed around them by this person, all of this torture will end. And so what can happen for the Michaels of the world is just that unrelenting pressure to just give up and give all control over the other person, because it just makes it easier in the moment, right?
Cousin, my niece.
And then what happens is it's not just like, well, I'll give up on my truth this time. often what will happen, especially if it's repeated over time, is the individual just gives up the ability to evaluate the truth all the time in every situation. It just becomes this general mechanism that becomes generally turned off. And it takes a long time after emerging from that relationship to be able to gain that back. It takes a long time. And if you work with people that emerge from cults or high control religious groups, which arguably is a cult, or from these kinds of relationships, it takes a long time for the individual because there's always uncertainty, right? Like when you have a reaction to your partner and you're having a conflict and you're like, no, they're wrong and I'm right. We all know that, at least hopefully, when we're differentiated, that we're like, well, maybe I'm not all right and maybe they're not all wrong. In fact, there's a possibility I'm 90% wrong, but I just can't really relate to it right now. That's differentiation. Well, we all have that. That's rational. But so it's hard to differentiate between that normal questioning of the self. We should question ourselves. We should really, am I right about that? I can't really just arrogantly and narcissistically assume that all my impulses and thoughts are the truth. So, and maybe my partner's truth is more the truth or something. So that's a good mechanism to have. That is the definition that's one major defining manifestations of differentiation, as I talk about it, and Murray Bowen talked about it 70 years ago. So we just have to spend a lot of time listening to their heart, listen to your heart. That's a song by, is that Wilson Phillips or is that Roxette? Anyway, either way, great song. Let's get back to the show.
Who's Angel?
Huh?
Angelle. Who is that? That's a girl name. Don't dare.
Oh, God.
A girl?
My friend.
I'm gonna call it.
Now, maybe he is cheating, but he looks like to be hundreds, if not thousands, of contacts in his phone. And there's one person in there that looks like a woman, and she's like convinced something's going on there. Like, let's look through your phone. Do you have no men, acquaintances, or coworkers, or something in your phone? So now she's going to call it. Now, if she calls it just like, hey, sorry for bothering you. I have an issue with jealousy. I just want to make sure that my husband isn't up to anything bad, and I'm sorry for bothering you. This is maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen.
A friend? Is this the same friend that's on his social media that he called his person? And if it is, I'm gonna find out right damn now.
Just that arrogance. I mean, even if this was a real situation and this was rational, just the way she words that, it's so off-putting to me personally as a citizen. But so yeah, she's still thinking that your person. It's just so okay. He gives up his Instagram, and I was like, well, the abuse isn't going to stop in all likelihood. But I thought at least there'd be 5 minutes of reprieve, not 2 seconds of reprieve. And to be specific, I said, right, that the isolation campaign will continue, right? Because that's the whole point. It's not that you're working something out or you're compromising. It's just one stop along the road of isolating the victim. So she isolated him from Instagram, and now she has to continue to isolate. What'll happen in this situation is, say this is a friend or just an acquaintance, and she calls. So 2 things will happen. One is the friend, the other individual, will be like, this is chaotic. I'm going to delete. Michael was a good person. But it sounds like something weird's going on. I'm going to delete this. I'm not going to talk to him anymore. Something's going on there. So it isolates Michael from that individual because the individual walks away. But it also will give Michael a chill through his body of just like, I better delete all my contacts that happen to be women on my phone. I can't talk to women, even if they're friends. It's just not worth it. Isolation, control, abuse.
What's the meaning of this
You're
now?
scared. You hide something?
I'm not hiding anything.
Then get over it, because I'm going to look.
I don't like it.
Who
I don't like
cares?
it.
Because if you want a wife, this is who you got. I will always be in your business. You always can be in mine. I don't care. But I will always be in your business.
Wow. I mean, wow. Why does this surprise me every time? I guess it's just so foreign of a way of thinking, right? And so obviously abusive. I mean, even the hand gesture. I will always be in your business. That is going to happen. Always. You will have no rights. I will invade everything. I will isolate you completely. You have no ability to push back. I have all the control. Whatever I want to do, I'm going to do. It's severe. We've seen seemingly abusive behavior and personalities on the show. This is striking.
The lady is a friend. We met at higher institution. Angela doesn't want me to talk to any female, but my wife has been doing things she doesn't want me to do, by talking to Billy and tweeting on TikTok. So why is she only pointing fingers at me?
How many times I told you not to be having women on your phone?
Babe.
How dare you? Hello?
Hello?
Hey, this is Angela Michaels.
So, yeah, she's laying into this person, which will cause her and maybe others to be like, I'm going to avoid Michael now. It drives a wedge between Michael and anyone else. So it sounds like she's modified her campaign speech, if you will. At first it was Instagram. Now it's you can't have women on your phone at all. So you can't have a coworker, a friend, an old friend, an acquaintance, a family member, your friend's wife. You can't text her if, you can't have any woman on your phone. Wow. I mean, wow, right?
Wife?
Please, enough is enough.
I'm just wondering why your number's in my husband's phone. That's all.
You just have to, I keep wondering, what does Michael want and what does he get out of the relationship? It's just so unrelenting and he can clearly see it, and he doesn't seem like someone that comes from an abusive background who doesn't believe in himself, right? But maybe he is. I don't know. Or he is desperate for the visa or something. I don't know. Now, this is a common thing that you will hear. If you're a victim, you'll hear people, and maybe even clinicians sometimes, unfortunately, will say like, why are you in this relationship? Why don't you leave, right? So I guess I'm falling into that problematic mindset. I don't know. It just seems like Michael has other options, or it seems like he has people in his court that would help him, or because often by the time it's in this phase, the victim has no contact with other people, and maybe that is the case. It's hard to know. The other thing that I'll throw out there, I think I've talked about this before, is God knows what the production team is, what role they're playing in all this, right? We have no idea. They could be doing, it runs the spectrum, right? On one hand, they could be supportive of Michael. There could be people behind the scenes going, Michael, you understand you're being abused right now. You don't have to be in this relationship. Or on the other side, they're pressuring Michael, just be like, Michael, come on, you got to make this work, right? This is your marriage. Like, I don't understand why you're holding on to your Instagram. Or they're just not doing anything. I don't know. It's hard to say. I just really wonder what's going on in his mind. Is he like, okay, I'll give this one last chance, but I'm not going to put up with this anymore or something. Or I just got to get to the States, and once I get my visa, then c'est la vie, or hasta la vista, or whatever. Or he is thinking, maybe there is something wrong with me. I don't know. Just so much depends on what's going on in his mind. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.